Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa. You know, we're a mother-daughter team behind Big Blend magazines and Big Blend Radio, and we travel full-time across the country on our Love Your Parks tour, where we document parks, public lands, and also the treasures found within their communities. And we also pet sit, right, Nancy? And today, we're pet sitting in Kansas City. It's beautiful. It is warm. And normally on today's show, our fourth Wednesday, we chat with San Diego employment attorney Ward Heinrichs. bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. Got to give him a shout out. But when he knew we were starting this tour, which we started in 2012, but now we're full timing it, right, on the road. He said, you know what? I want you girls to go and get some Law and Order stories for me. And we did. We went to Boot Hill Grave site, read the cemetery, Nancy, and Tombstone, Yuma Territorial Prison. Where, oh yeah, Joe Boot and oh my gosh, how could Pearl Hart, the bandit? We've seen things like Billy the Kid. We went to his gravesite. We haven't reported on that yet. But one thing we actually started doing a lot of is courthouses. Who knew we would actually be doing that, Nancy? Courthouses.
You know, not only are the buildings interesting, but what happens inside is really interesting.
But also, I find it interesting because we go through these tiny towns across the country because we live all scenic byways and highways, and we see, you know, here's this tiny town with historic buildings. Something happened because they have this giant courthouse that is almost like the foundation, or even sometimes it's within the town square. Like we were just in Leon, Iowa, and their courthouse, which is on the historic Jefferson Highway, another one of our projects that goes from Winnipeg to New Orleans. Got to give them a shout out. But this courthouse was like, it's like the center plaza, like Prescott, Arizona, the courthouse there, right? That's like it's the heart of Whiskey Row.
Well, there you go.
Well, I always wonder.
Interesting.
Well, they have a lot of them are public spaces. They are courthouses. But I think it's interesting about when a courthouse gets put into a community. Don't you think that's when a community is starting to prosper and thrive, that it has enough people and enough crime for a courthouse to go in?
I was just going to say it's kind of like they need the law and order.
Yeah.
You know, and then they need someone to regulate who gets what for what. Like if you did this is how many days you spend. You know, and to regulate what happens in the community.
So we got a bunch of wards out there, you know.
Yeah.
We keep telling Ward he needs to become a judge, you know, but he's working for small businesses, you know, as an employment attorney, works for also the employees, works with them and helps them all out. But he really did send us on this amazing journey. And we have a gazillion photos of courthouses. It's like pull over, pull over, pull over. You know, we do that with brown signs for parks, but a lot of times these are national historic landmarks. And a majority, I would say the majority of the courthouses that we've been to have public space, sometimes it used to be a city hall area, sometimes have picnic benches. A lot of them have war memorials attached on the grounds. So they'll have World War II, Vietnam, World War I memorials there, and sometimes gazebos or bandstands. So, you know, politicking happens. Is that what we say that happens? Yeah.
For sure, politicking it.
Yeah, they've been politicking it. But today we're going to just talk about one courthouse that we saw. So we all know about the pandemic happening, and Nancy and I were sheltered in place in 29 Palms, right outside Joshua Tree National Park. In fact, we could see it from where we were at our friend's place. And, you know, we stayed there for 3 months, and we were supposed to be there for 3 weeks. We were supposed to go to Palm Springs for a couple weeks, well, a week in Palm Springs, a week in Joshua Tree area, 29 Palms, and a week in Big Bear. And of course, the pandemic said, no, you're going to hang out with your friends. and we're still friends, believe it or not, huh? That's
Yeah.
pretty good. That
Well,
was
she was
pretty
very
good.
generous.
Thank
Let
you,
us
Jerry
say.
Hagman. Gotta thank Jerry. And then it was time to, spread our wings and get back on the road and continue our tour. Of course, very safely. We stayed away from people, and a lot of things were closed, but the roads were quiet and not as much construction and not as many bad drivers. Did I say that?
No, it was actually easier to drive.
It was quite lucky.
Mhm.
We, but anyway, our first drive was we went from 29 Palms, California to Yerington, Nevada, where we have our friends over who own the Yerington Inn. And we took Highway 395, which we've done a number of times in our life. Highway 395 is an incredibly scenic route. So we went through like Lucerne Valley, through the backwoods of the Joshua Tree Woods, I should say, of through the Mojave Desert into Barstow. Then from Barstow, you go up 395. And this is where a lot of people will drive if they're going from Joshua Tree National Park, which also connects also south of that is Borrego Springs in California. So it ends at Borrego Desert State Park, largest desert state park, 630 something, 600 something thousand acres of desert. So anyway, you can go from there up to Joshua Tree, then drive up to Death Valley from here. So if you're driving north, to the right of you is Death Valley, and to the left of you, here comes the Sierra Nevada mountain range, which is incredible. You're going to drive past Mount Whitney. It is, I mean, how many times have we stopped, had a picnic, and you're seeing like desert to the right, mountains to the left, snow-capped mountains. And so we were doing this, and there's all kinds of crazy public art. And we were doing this in May. And so May is spectacular. Wildflowers are starting. The desert was awesome. Remember that sunrise we went through, Nancy, on our way up? Joshua trees in the sunrise. Oh my gosh.
No, it's
So
awesome.
it was a magical trip. So we start driving, go through the desert. Now I'm looking at my map here because I'm making sure. So we go up 395. So when you do this, you're going to go through Mojave. Ridgecrest is an area too that you can go through if you want to go stop there. It's a gateway community to Death Valley. And then you hit Lone Pine. Now to the left of you at this time is Sequoia National Forest, Sequoia National Park, and Kings Canyon. And you can actually, from the town of Independence that we're talking about, which is the Inyo County Courthouse is where we stopped. You can take hiking trails up into Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park from there. But it's also Independence. And I bring up this word since 4th of July weekend is coming. See how we're tying this all together? And there are other independence towns and cities across the country. There's one in Alabama, Kansas, Georgia, because we get confused. You're suddenly driving it says Independence. We're like,
Like, what state are we in?
Yeah, happens a lot to us. But anyway, so there's Inyo National Forest there too. Speaking of forests and parks, to the left of you. So I should say west. But you're heading actually kind of towards Mammoth Lakes and Mono Lake. And so Independence is a place where a lot of Pacific Crest Trail hikers that are hiking from Canada, the border of Canada down to Mexico, will stop and get supplies. There's support systems. If you're doing that, people know how to do all that. So anyway, we went through Lone Pine, which is beautiful. And this is where the mountain scenery starts to come in, the Western history, a lot of Native American cultural history here. And definitely, I think there's even a casino near Bishop area, Nancy, as I recall. I could be wrong. Is it Big Pine? But anyway, there's a lot of history, a lot of nature. So we stopped in Independence because here's this very historic, quaint, charming town and this giant courthouse. We're like, dude, we got to pull over. Ward, we got to do this. We're not going to get COVID from photographing a courthouse. And the courthouse had these beautiful roses planted all in full bloom. Amazing sculptures too. That's what they, not sculptures, but they had plaques looking at the people that came through the area. They had dedicated to the pioneers of Inyo County. My land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth pleaseth thee, excuse me. That's from Genesis 20:15. This was dedicated in April 27th, 1958, and it is a bronze plaque with a sculpture of people in a wagon train.
Mhm.
So this is crazy, right? When you think about
Well,
this landscape.
it's very historic, but also artistic, but the building is pretty dominant. I mean, it's like,
Boom.
that
Yeah.
this is an important building, that this is this is going to be law and order. It's not a hotel or restaurant looking building. It is, come here and we'll sort you out building.
Oh, but I mean, it's very prominent. And they
It's
also had
beautiful.
outside.
It's a beautiful building. I think what I read, it was classical revival style. So they've gone back and made it very historic looking. It's
Mhm.
huge. It's a big
Yeah.
building.
Well, I was reading what you dug up all kinds of information about it. It was
Mhm.
designed by architect William H. Weeks, and he
Yeah.
did that in the classical revival style. It was built in
Mhm.
1922. It is on the National Register of Historic Places. It was listed in 1998. And they say, and thank you, Wikipedia, and all these sources online, so you never know, but this is what we looked up, that it's significant for association with economic and political development of the Owens Valley and for
Mhm.
housing county government during 1921 to 1947. It is the
Mhm.
only example of monumental neoclassical revival architecture in the Owens Valley area. It also represents the peak of local autonomy, excuse me, I can pronounce things right,
Hello.
Nancy. I know. Autonomy, I
Autonomy.
know. That's just for Ward. So, he's missing us right now because now we're
I
doing,
bet.
he put us to work and this is what happens. He knows I can't pronounce anything. But anyway, this is before the city of Los Angeles apparently purchased the majority of the land of the valley and they
Mhm.
basically
Took the
sucked up the
water.
water. Am I right in that,
Yeah, they
Nancy?
did.
Sucked up
Yeah,
the
they
water.
did. That,
Yeah.
yeah, LA needed water because of the amount of people that were living there.
Wow.
And
That's
yeah,
amazing.
so well, it's something that today might not be allowed to happen, but back then they took the water.
Well, what's interesting about it is north of it is Mono Lake, and Mono
Mhm.
Lake is famous for this is, and they actually have this outside the courthouse, which is another thing, which it has a tufa, right?
Yeah,
Let's see if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
yeah.
Which is
Mhm.
limestone tufas are these formations that you can see. And I've driven through the mountains, and you can go up by Mono Lake. It's up north by Lee Vining and there's state parks and everything. Nancy and I've been to them. It's absolutely gorgeous and otherworldly. In fact, Pink Floyd has Mono Lake in one of their album covers on the
Mhm.
inside of one of their album covers for a reason. But it's really it is otherworldly and very alkaline. The water and everything. A lot of bird life there. But I went
You know,
down the mountain pass from Sacramento. I went down from there, so you can get to Yosemite from there. And I went down the mountain pass one time and they were closing all the little mountain roads going down because the snow was coming. But I caught the sunset. Snow was
mm,
coming down. There were snow-capped mountains because it had already been snow. And I probably shouldn't have been there, but I was. And the full moon came out over the lake. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. There was pink, full moon, and snow coming
mm.
down. So no, I did not take a photo, but it will be imprinted on me in my memory, in my heart and soul forever what I witnessed that evening driving down.
Those yeah, I don't know what you want to call them.
Tufas.
Tufas. Well, they're limestone and they used
Hmm.
to be underwater
Hmm.
until the water got drained
Yeah.
and used elsewhere. And then slowly as that happened, and then natural evaporation for heat and all that, but these huge things that look like sculptures, tufas, are standing out there, and the lighting on them changes from hour to hour to hour,
Hmm.
from sunrise to sunset. And then I can see like in inclement weather that would look totally different. So no matter when you go there, you're going to see something different, which is
It's
pretty cool.
This is amazing. I mean, to me, you got to go. So
Yeah.
if you go 395, stop in Independence and Big Pine, Lone Pine, all of those areas up there, there's places to stay. There's really charming. It's just like the Western frontier in a way out there. Like I said, also a lot of Native American heritage. And going back to the courthouse, let me go back to the Inyo County Courthouse. So Weeks designed this, and he did
Mhm.
over 1,000 buildings by
Yeah.
1915 that he designed.
It's a
And
busy
one of
boy.
them is the City Hall in Hollister, California, which
Mhm.
is just south of San Francisco. It's in Monterey Bay area and outside Pinnacles National Park. So on the other side of the Sierras, the west of the Sierras, and we've been there, and I've got photos of that, so I'll put that somewhere. We'll feature it in a magazine soon. But anyway, going back to the history of the courthouse, which does have a giant tufa out there, so you can go see the tufa. Lets you kind of get some history before you get there. But this Independence actually began as a U.S. Army camp. It was actually founded originally as Charles Putnam, which I want to now know if he's got to do with Porterville too, because there's a Putnam out there. There's
Mhm.
Putnams everywhere. He
Well,
founded a trading post at the site, which became Putnam's, later known as Little Pine, and from the Little Pine Creek. And there was a cabin across the street from what is now the courthouse, which is a California historical landmark marking his place. But it really was a U.S. Army camp called Independence, 2 miles north of what is now the current town. And it was established by Lieutenant Colonel George S. Evans on, guess what day? July 4th, 1862.
that's
And
why it's called
this was,
Independence.
a lot of these forts were built because they were, in fear of the local indigenous tribes. It really closed down pretty quick, but it was reestablished as Fort Independence because some hostilities did resume, and then finally abandoned in 1877. And now is the reservation for the Fort Independence Indian community of Paiute Indians.
Mm.
But it became this county seat of Inyo County, Independence, the town, in 1866. Because it has to go in regards to, it's a mining story, which is kind of interesting too. So, and
Mhm.
their very first post office was established in 1866. So there you go.
Yeah,
Also, U.S. Army General John K. Singlow, who was 1921 through 2022, was born in Independence, and he's pretty well known for his career, his military career. So, and Nancy, you found an author out there too.
yeah, there's a lady that wrote a book that apparently she's one of the first nature writers.
Wow.
And yeah, and so she's
Here it is, Mary Austin. I'm looking at your notes. Nancy found
yeah.
a whole bunch. She wrote The
Yeah.
Land of Little Rain, and it's all
Mm.
about the fauna, flora, and people of the area, and mysticism. Ooh, yeah,
Mhm.
because
Well,
it is the
because
high
she
Sierras. Yeah, it's the high Sierras that you're in.
well,
Mhm.
and she also just found the whole landscape mystical and it
Magical. I
it
agree.
awakened her imagination, let's put it that way.
And
So, and for her to write a nature book, that's a description that unless you get the book,
Mhm.
I don't know if it is a nonfiction or a fiction book, actually.
Well, we have to go get it now. And her home is now
Mhm.
preserved as a museum there, and they also have
Yes.
a bigger museum in Independence. So we obviously need to go back, and we want to go into the courthouse this time.
Mhm.
But this is our first courthouse story. Not that we did that much on the courthouse, but again, it's monumental, as they say, and it was designed by William H. Weeks in the classical revival style. So thank you for joining us here on Big Blend Radio. Thank you, Ward Heinrichs, for sending us on a cool adventure. We have many more courthouse stories to share with you across the country. But again, keep up with Ward at bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. He's coming back. We're going to go back into employment law, but we just decided, well, he wanted us to do our job. He said, I sent you on a mission. Get on with it, girl. So here we are.
Thank you, Ward.
And yep, thank you, Ward. He'll be back for the fourth Wednesday in July. And thanks, everyone. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.